question that was just asked, and in the back, I'm sure you couldn't hear, was what are we doing to stop the pipeline proposal across northern British Columbia, and can we stop it? We're doing everything possible to stop the proposed Enbridge Northern Gateway project, and it's shocking to me that there's still any chance of it being approved, given that the British Columbia government has said that on the evidence presented by the company that wants to build the project, Enbridge, they didn't produce evidence that they knew what they were doing. That's the bottom line of what the province said. They haven't produced evidence that they know what to do if there's a spill of this bitumen mixed with diluent. They haven't shown that they know, their evidence doesn't even really talk about bitumen and diluent. They acted as if it's the same stuff as crude oil. If it spills on a pipeline across northern BC, if it spills from a tanker from Kitimat coming out heading south or further west, they don't know how it behaves in the environment. Yesterday I mentioned Adam Olson and I and Andrew Weaver did a press conference. We received a lot of documentation that came from somebody in government who took a huge chance to send it to us, proving that we spent $78 million this year on research and preparation for helping Enbridge on the assumption the tankers were going to be approved. That's how all the documents read. Now they're available on the Green Party website. You can have a look at them yourself. We didn't put all of them up there. We put the key ones up. And a fascinating response, I don't know how many of you saw this in this morning's paper, from Joe Oliver, Minister of Natural Resources, was to make fun of us and say, oh, well, they just missed the fact this was already announced. Well, I can assure you I didn't miss the fact it was already announced because it was never announced. I went back just for the heck of it and read everything he'd submitted on their website of Natural Resources Canada and the press conference. It's true that in the course of a tanker announcement in Vancouver in March, he mentioned that the federal government was going to do some research into non-conventional fossil fuels such as bitumen. But there was nothing that said we're going to focus our research aims and spend $78 million this year in ways that are clearly directed to one project which is currently under review. And meanwhile, we shut down the marine contaminants program. It was 80 scientists across Canada. We've lost all the habitat fisheries officers in DFO because they've removed the habitat protection sections of the Fisheries Act. We lost the experimental lakes area. It looks like the government of Ontario is going to keep it open. The Polar Environmental Arctic Research Lab at Eureka, all the science that used to be funded through the government of Canada on climate change and ozone depletion, all of this is being slashed, and instead we spent $78 million helping Enbridge. I think it's shocking, and I almost think it's just as shocking that so much of the media was prepared to say it was all announced before. It's not as if we're referring to evidence that's unattainable. Joe Oliver's press conference and his press release is still online. You can look it up, Natural Resources Canada website for March 2013. The documents that were leaked to us are on our website. You can look at both and see if any sensible person would think that what we were sent and put up online yesterday was revealed in Joe Clark, I love Joe Clark, I'm sorry Joe Oliver's press conference. Not at all. Adam, did you want to add something?
And that program they started funding that program or developing that program in
May 2012.
May 2012. So
yes.
In fact, they were spending the money, in essence, a year before.
Yeah.
And that program was called the Northern Gateway Project. So it's pretty hard to dispute the fact that this was basically a blank check to do work for an applicant, which he couldn't do in local government. You know, your local government can't pay for an applicant's efforts.
You can't look at a hearing and say, uh-oh, they forgot to do the research on this key bit that was Enbridge was mandated to provide this evidence to the Joint Review Panel. They didn't do it, so now we're paying for it. And if they were funding science up the yin-yang, if every single scientist in the government of Canada was getting the research budget they need to understand freshwater ecology and we have a huge problem happening across Canada right now. It isn't affecting this riding, but Lake Winnipeg and the Great Lakes right across Canada, we have a real huge boom of eutrophication and lakes that may go toxic and die. We need a lot of research dollars there. What made the big threat that requires research dollars being spent, how you deal with an oil spill of bitumen and diluent from a project that isn't yet approved? What made that the #1 priority? Well, clearly because they want to go ahead and they know Enbridge hasn't done the homework.